Grandparent names is the name of this lesson, and we're going to, what do you call yours? This lesson is intended for grades 2, and it should take you about 2 to 3 class periods. So grandparents are very special to people. I know that my granddaughter is a very special person in my life, and we do a lot of things together, and I hope that she has a lot of fond memories of the activities that we do. One of the things that students need to know is that grandparents are essential members of families and communities. They even have a special day called National Grandparents Day that got started in 1978 with some legislation by Jimmy Carter. So this lesson will have students taking a look at how grandparents are different and the different names that they may call them in different cultures, and discover that all grandparents are unique, but they also share some common characteristics. And they're going to have a chance to learn where some of the names for grandparents originated in this lesson. So the materials for this lesson will be a series of books, and you could use one or two of these, both of them if you wanted to. And it's I Call My Grandma Nana is one of the books, and I Call My Grandpa Papa is the other book by Ashley Wolf. They're going to be writing a Cinquain poem, so they'll need some of that information. And there's a worksheet that students will use, and it's called I Call My Grandma, Grandpa, whatever name it is. You'll need art supplies. You'll need access to a computer that will record audio. And you're going to create a free teacher account using a website called littlebirdtales.com. And you'll need a world map and a scoring checklist. So those are the materials that you'll find in this lesson. The objectives for this lesson is that students are going to be able to recognize a political world map. They're going to observe on a map where some common names for grandparents originated, and they'll be able to describe his or her culture. They'll write a poem. They're going to use technology to create an audio recording and illustrate a poem, and they're going to identify some similarities and differences between their grandparents. You're going to begin this lesson by asking students if they've ever eaten taco, spaghetti, or sushi, and have they ever seen a piñata maybe or jumped rope. And you're going to then move on, and as they've shared some of their ideas, they're going to just point out that there are many things that come from other cultures that are part of our communities and the people in our families. Have students share what they call their parents. Be sure they notice that there are many different names for moms and dads, mommy, daddy, pops. Tell students that today they will be learning 2 stories about what people call their grandparents. So you're going to read the story to them. I Call My Grandma Nana and Call My Grandpa Papa. And as you're reading, you're going to pause to allow students to make some personal connections. I'm just going to share a few of the pages in the story with you. Basically, this story has the teacher. She's got her grandmother visiting from China today, and she introduces her grandmother. And she tells them that their grandmothers all have stories to tell and that no two are the same. So they go on in this book, and they explain some of the different names that their grandmas are, or Grammys, and what they do with them. And the students continue on and tell you, like, Oba-chan folds paper. She made a purple crane. Now I'm going to teach her how to fly a plane, as on one of the pages. So this one goes on, and then it tells a little bit about another grandmother name and what the student likes to do with their grandmother. So as you're reading, you can, pause and have the kids that make their personal connections with them, things that they like to do with their grandparents. You're going to show students a series of maps. Show them a political map, and then show them a physical map of the world, and emphasize a little bit about the land and the water features, and then take a minute to go over the 2 different maps. You want to emphasize that these 2 maps have different purposes. Explain to them what a political map is, explain to them a little bit about a physical map. And then the next thing you're going to do is ask the students which map would be best to show where the names came from. And the students should hopefully identify that a political map would help them to know what countries these names came from. The back of the book has a little guide for you that's very handy that tells you where the names came from mentioned in the story. So you can use those. So point out a few examples to them, like that Mammy came from France and Oma from Germany and Oji-san from Japan, and point these places out on the map. And then you can go on and ask students what names they give to their grandparents and have them share where that name came from if they know, or they can use a book. You can help them with the information. Then you can point out the country on the map. Ask students to predict and share the reasons for how all these different names for grandparents wound up in the United States. You can ask them to predict and share their reasoning about how these different names came to the United States. So you can say, how do you think that the names for grandparents in Spanish would have arrived in United States? And then you can go into the idea of migrations. Allow students to share some of the things they enjoy doing with their grandparents or what they really like about their grandparents. Have them share with a partner first, gives them a chance to rehearse their answers, so then they can go ahead and then share with the entire class. You'll want to keep a word wall of the activities and some of the common words that you hear the students share. The students may want to use these later on when they write their poems, so a word wall really will help. Close the session by asking the students to go home and think more about what makes their grandparents special to them. If you want, they can bring in pictures of the grandparents. They can also ask their parents where their names came from, if they call them Nana or Grammy or wherever. So have them go home and find out a little bit more about the name they call their grandparents. Then you're ready to start session 2 the next day, and tell the students that today they're going to be learning to write a very special kind of a poem about one of their grandparents. There's a worksheet that's on display for you called that you're going to give to them, and this is a direction sheet that you could either post under a dock camera or you could have each student have a copy of it, but it's a direction sheet basically that goes over the format for a cinquain poem and a little example using the word mom. So go over the example, assist the students as they go ahead and write their own poem about their grandparents. To help them write their poem, the students are going to get a worksheet that'll look like this one. That will give them the directions again, line by line, and a place to write things so you don't have to keep repeating things to them. So in the first line, they're going to write the name for their grandparents, what they might call them, and then they'll continue on with the directions describing things that they like and they like to do with them. You could also, the next thing you'll want to have them do is they can use a drawing program such as Paint or Pixie, which are available on Tech for Learning, or you could have them hand draw pictures of what they do with their grandparents and then scan them into some kind of a digital format if you would like to. The next thing you're going to do to have them present their poem is go to Little Bird Tales, and you've already set up your class account, and their website looks like the screen, and it's real simple to use. There's a little button that'll tell them to begin to record their poem, and they read their poems out loud. They can create pages. It's sort of like a PowerPoint, but at a very primary level. There's a place for them to insert their pictures that they've drawn, if you got them in digital format, you can upload them and put them in there. There's also a very simple drawing program that comes with this website where the students can try and draw in their own pictures to go along with their poems. These can be posted or submitted for public display, so it wouldn't cost you anything for this. Or you can actually, when you're finished, purchase a copy of all of their work for 99 cents. And you get it as a download. So you're going to collect all of their little worksheets on their poems for your assessment, and then you'll carry on a class discussion and talk about their differences in their poems, in their grandparents, and share their poems with each other. As a closure, you're going to remind their students that the grandparents are really important members of the community, and no matter what they call their parents, they're all unique and very special. In this lesson, you'll find a writing assessment for social studies and for reading and writing, and this shows the mastery and the elements that you'll want to check on their poems, and how you'll want to score those, and some place for some comments. This one has a lot of extensions to it, because you could use this activity as a celebration of Grandparents' Day, which is in September. Find out more about Grandparents' Day in other countries. You would be surprised to learn that Grandparents' Day is in many, many different countries around the world. You could look at the geo-math lesson called Dog Parks for grade 2, and this one is a list of what cultures use for dog sounds, and that might be a fun thing to follow up with as part of a cultural lesson. So hopefully you've got some ideas on how you can use these 2 books to teach your students some poetry, a little about the world and about other people.